Raleigh Grossbaum, welcome to the ITA College Tennis Coaches Podcast.
Thanks, Dave. Pumped to be here. Really an honor. It's such a privilege. And when you reached out to me about this, I was, through the roof. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, great, Raleigh. Yeah, it's been fun getting to know you the last few years, and you. I think we first interacted. You're one of the first members of our mentorship program, and have enjoyed following your career since then. So, yeah, I know great things ahead of you. But we'll get into a little bit of your backstory, but also want to talk about kind of the current state of things within Division One athletics, Division One tennis, how you're thinking about it and protecting your program going forward. So looking forward to getting into that. But let's start with your college days. You graduated from Ferris State with a degree in professional tennis management. So was your goal always to be a college tennis coach, or were you looking to get into some other area of the tennis industry?
Yeah, I would say from the summer after my senior year of high school, I worked with a coach named Jim Mortgad. And from working with him, I decided I definitely wanted to be in performance tennis and help players get better and really inspire people through tennis and their pursuit of excellence in tennis to help with their pursuit of excellence in life. Um, and then I was fortunate enough to spend a year and a half at Boise State working under Greg Patton, my first year and a half of college. And he was really the coach that made me want to go from high performance tennis to specifically college tennis. So
Mm,
when I transferred to Ferris State and joined the professional tennis management program, it was the goal to be in high performance tennis, working with a group of people who were all pushing and hopefully college tennis. But I was also open to academy tennis, which is where I started my career after college, or traveling on the pro circuit. I've always thought would be just incredibly cool and unique experience. So college tennis has always been at the top of it, but not the only thing I would consider. Um, yeah, so I think as long as it's performance based, or shouldn't even say performance based, I should say motivation based, people that are really hungry and want to put in the work to get better.
mm. And so, what I mean, chatted with a few folks on this podcast and elsewhere who went through the Ferris State program and, yeah, are in different parts of the industry now. But what are some tools or skills you learned through that program that you feel like are applicable to being a college tennis coach?
Yeah, a ton, honestly. I think a huge part of the help has been like the business savvy.
Hmm.
The professional tennis management degree at Ferris is, heavy business focus with an emphasis in tennis. And I think that that has been extremely helpful compared to maybe some of my peers who haven't gone through as much business training with budgeting and scheduling and things like that. But honestly, the network and the networking skills that we were trained in at Ferris was incredible, and it's helpful, on a regular basis, and not only the ability to connect with people, but also the network that it gave me. I rely on that on a monthly basis, if not more often, with other Ferris State PTMers, with other PTMers from other schools, and with people who know the program, and it gives an in to understanding my background and my, I guess, passion and desire to go wherever to learn about tennis.
Mm. And Riley, I wasn't aware of your interaction with Coach Greg Patton, and he was maybe the first guest on this podcast,
Oh
so
well.
several years ago. But um, I think a lot of our coaches are familiar with Greg, especially those who have been around a few more years. But are there some things that you learned from him that, again, you really apply on a daily or weekly basis with your team or program?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the biggest is the passion. That's why I wanted to become a college coach. It's why I was a college tennis player. I was planning to walk on at Boise State. He told me I can come help out, and if I ever beat any of the guys, then he'd give me a spot. And I was, arrogant 18-year-old, thought I was good enough to do that. And I remember the start of my sophomore year. I was helping out, stringing, feeding balls, whatever I could do. And the first meeting of the year, he just lit up the room and was like through the roof, like, this is the best thing ever. Today's the best day. It's the start of season. Like, there's no place we'd rather be. And I remember like walking out of that room thinking like, I've got to go play somewhere. Like I got to go find somewhere. And that's where I ended up at Ferris. And I think I try and keep that passion and share that excitement with my athletes on a daily basis.
Mm.
Just the joy for life that he had. Yeah, it's a tennis skill. It's a life skill. So that I'll keep with me and never lose.
Yeah, yeah, he's one in a million for sure, or maybe one in a billion. And yeah, with the passion, there's got to be days where you have a hard time getting up for it, or yeah, igniting that passion. You know, if the season's not going well, or you're dealing with some ups and downs. Again, any advice for coaches on when you're struggling to find that passion, and you know it's such a huge part of what your role is as a college coach. You are trying to inspire these players, and sometimes the players don't want to be there. How do you get in that mindset before practice, say, if you're really feeling you're struggling that day?
Yeah, to be honest, there are probably people that would have better answers for this, or be better people to answer this. The way that I've been doing it, which I don't necessarily know is the right way, but when I'm not feeling it, I wear it on my sleeve a lot, and I'll often have interactions where it's like, "Hey guys, this is happening, and it's stressing me out, and this I don't have the same level of fire today, just like you guys won't on any given day, and I'm going to be there as present as I can, and I'm focusing on these things, and I'm very transparent with my athletes, and I think my hope is that it helps them see like it's not that Coach Raleigh is passionate every moment of every day, and it's just something you have or you don't. It's like there are days where it's a grind, and you have to refocus and take a breath and uh, recenter yourself and have a broader perspective and stay grateful for the things that you do have. And honestly, the second I start talking about that stuff and teaching about gratitude and uh, those things, that's something I have a lot of passion for. So then I start getting the passion comes right back. Teaching about hard times and sharing my own struggles often gets me reignited, like within a couple minutes. So
Yeah.
uh, that's been my strategy. So far, it's been all right.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. I'm not sure there is a right answer there, but I think that's as good an answer as anybody can give. And I'm sure your student athletes appreciate that, and probably maybe more relatable because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't really pull the wool over their eyes. They're smarter than we think sometimes. So yeah, so y- you go through the program. You have exposure in different areas of the tennis industry in general, but you were really thrust into a head coaching role at Southern Utah in 2019, um, right as the COVID-19 virus is starting to spread across the world, and your administration in your first year there decide to cut tennis. I think that story's right, the timeline's right, but can you take us back to that time, and what was their reasoning for cutting the program back in 2020, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. We did like half a season. I started in
Right.
July of 2019, and March of 2020 season got canceled, and then our program got canceled, a couple months later. Um, Honestly, their rationale was just, it's incentive based. What is the value add? What is the cost of having tennis? And
Hmm.
there were a handful of different reasons, but at the end of the day, the tennis programs at Southern Utah were a net negative for the university, and the value add was minimal, and there were ways of showing that in attendance, even in success, but I think greater than that was the financial aspect. I remember the president of the university in our conversation where we tried to kind of save it. He was the one who ended up making the call in our situation. And one of his rationale pieces was, in the entire history of the tennis program, we've had $1,000 of donations. And that's just, it's not a sport that athletes had left and given back to the university. It wasn't a sport that curated community, and it just it it wasn't something that they wanted to deal with. And honestly, the biggest thing is the Big Sky used to have tennis as a required sport, and so when programs started getting cut during COVID, I felt pretty safe, because we were a required sport by our conference, and there was nothing they could do. And uh, then the Big Sky changed their core sports requirements, and like I would say, probably within a couple days, Southern Utah was like, "Okay, cool, we'll be done with it." So
Mm.
there's a handful of reasons, but I would say that the core piece is that we weren't a net value add for the university. There wasn't a reason to keep us other than just like kindness and generosity from them towards
Mm.
20 individuals who cared about the tennis team.
Wow. And Raleigh, looking back on it now, whether it was through the interviewing process and you deciding whether to take the job or not, or several months in, were there any warning signs? Because I get this question a lot, from folks who are like, did the coach really just find out, today on this Friday that the program was cut and they didn't know it was coming? And in most cases, yes, it's the first they've ever heard that their program was in danger when they're being told their program has been cut. But were there any warning signs that you saw looking back on how this played out that maybe you could share with coaches that they could be looking for as well?
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't think so. Like I said, I mean, it was very sudden because we were very protected. Like it didn't matter what the university wanted, really. They had to have men's and women's tennis. And
Hmm.
so, the warning signs, I guess, were the changing climate of the expectations during COVID. And obviously we were in danger because of our resources. We were, a sport that was in danger at that time at Southern Utah if there weren't requirements to keep us. So that could have been something that I was like, well, maybe the core requirements will change. Um, I think hiring a 25-year-old kid that had never coached college tennis before was probably a good indicator that they weren't that invested in the program. But yeah, not really anything other than I think looking back now, and something I'll talk more about, I'm sure, in this call, is just realizing what value we add to the university and the athletic department. And at Southern Utah, that was very minimal. Basically, the value add was us having a tennis team allowed us to stay in the conference, and
Mm.
that was our value add. So they had a tennis team and they funded it not very well, and uh, that when that became not a requirement, they were quick to say, "All right, we won't have a tennis team anymore."
Right. Okay. And then, yeah, I mean, definitely want to get into kind of where you're at now. And the next question I had was like anything you would have done differently if you were aware of the threat. So let's say you got the job and they said, "Hey, tennis is on the fence here. A year from now, we're considering cutting this sport." What steps would, if you had known, what steps do you think you would have taken in those first 12 months to demonstrate to the athletic director, to the president, that tennis did have value?
Yeah. Well, I think definitely more engagement with the community. We had one community clinic at my time in Southern Utah, and we had 4 people show up. Free tennis, anyone can come, taught by the athletes, and we had 4 people show up. Now, in all fairness, it was like 30 degrees that day, so it wasn't the ideal setting. But definitely investing in the community and getting more people involved, having more people, grow the sport in Cedar City, and uh, you know, pushing for some donations from alum, reaching out to alum, growing the alumni group. And it
Hmm.
would have been great if in our talk with the president, he said, "Well, we've had, in the history of tennis, we've had $3,000 donated." I said, "Yeah, and it's doubled this year than the history of all the other time." Had some trend of,
Yeah.
look, yeah, it's not high, but we're increasing at a really fast rate, which is an advantage of being a sport that doesn't have huge historical numbers. So I think those things, and yeah, I don't know that there would have been anything to save it in such a short timeline. But
Hmm.
definitely the adjustments I've made that I'm sure we'll talk about at Idaho, I think would help, and should help any coach and hopefully all programs and tennis in general.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're 5 years now post COVID, say. We're starting to see similar patterns of athletic departments cutting Olympic sports. There's a number of factors surrounding those reasons, and excuses being made a lot. Is pointed at the House settlement and preparing for revenue sharing and all the rest of it. We have um, the economy shrinking, potential talks of recession, federal funding not being sent towards universities. There's lots of things going on here at the same time that is creating this environment that we saw a little bit during COVID that is giving cover to athletic departments to just start cutting programs.
Yeah.
So yes, tell us what steps now you're taking at Idaho to ensure that it doesn't suffer the same fate as these other Olympic programs, or going through what you went through at Southern Utah.
Yeah. And I think for starters, the biggest thing for us, there's all these, as you said, like almost areas where they can cover, dropping programs. And at the end of the day, I think the Olympic sports and all non-revenue generating sports have, basically slid along without being a massive value add. We've been subsidized by either the university or the sports teams that do make money. And I think we're in a state right now where that is coming to an end, and it's going to be either become sustainable or a value add to the university, or Olympic sports are gonna get dropped all over the place, and they already are. And so I think the number one thing that we all need to be thinking is like we're not guaranteed sports anymore. Our sports, we have to have a sport that is a value add for the university and the athletic department. And the question we need to answer is how can we become that? What can we do to make that like the truth, that they're not just having us out of generosity and because they need to. It's like, yeah, men's tennis, women's tennis, any Olympic sport is, we need to have this sport because it adds value to our university, and we're better off with it than without it, even if all the other things stay the same. So what
Hmm.
we're doing here, the biggest thing is we do free community clinics every week. So an hour every single week, weather dependent. We're on the court, open to all ages, all levels, anyone in the community, or from the surrounding community. Anyone who can come comes out, and all of our athletes are there. All of the men's tennis athletes are there, and we're playing music and teaching people tennis and having a couple games courts, having some drills courts, having kids courts, and just getting people playing the sport and growing the popularity of tennis and growing a community, that I think will hopefully, help in donations and fundraising, which it already has, and fan attendance. And, the ultimate goal, I think, is to, like, why can't we be basketball? Why can't we be football? Why can't we have enough people who want to come to our matches that they have to start charging for attendance? I think that there's space for that, and I think that really all college tennis teams should be doing this on a weekly basis. Yeah, I could. Yeah, why don't I dive into that, because I'm pretty
Keep
hard on
going.
this right now.
Keep going. This is
Um,
great.
for me, I think that I think one of my favorite quotes is, a healthy person has no as a healthy person has hundreds of problems, but a sick person only has one. And it's like, once you're sick, it's like all the other things we care about not relevant anymore. And I think right now, college athletics is sick, and especially non-revenue generating sports. And I think that we have a major issue, which is that we are not sustainable independently of the other sports. And I think we need to start looking at it like that. And I remember from my Southern Utah days, there was a conference meeting where they talked about, okay, how many matches are we going to play? Are we going to have a conference tournament? This was during COVID, and I remember saying like, no, we need all of these things. We can't drop this. The experience is too valuable. And then a week later, my department calls and it's, hey, there's no more tennis. And instantly it went from we need all this stuff to like, we'll do anything. Don't give us scholarships. Don't give us an ops budget. We'll fundraise. Like, no referees, fine, doesn't matter. Like, I'll do whatever just to compete. And I think that right now, for me, it's easy to see because I've been through it. That like, no, we're in a desperate situation where we have to be sustainable first. And I think there's a lot of coaches who maybe don't have that. It's not as real for them. And I'm hoping that the programs that have been cut hopefully serve as a like alarm bell of like, this is not, there are programs that are massive. Iowa was top 25 in the country when they got cut. Fresno State, I mean, this isn't, no one's safe right now. And I'm hoping that, backs against the wall, it creates a space where our investment goes that way. And the priority number one above winning, above getting the number one recruit is growing our programs and our communities so that we have a sustainability aspect that isn't going to be taken away if the university doesn't have to keep us anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, very well said, Raleigh. Appreciate that, and I think yeah, it's a message we want to keep getting out. I just sent an email out. I'm not sure when this podcast goes out, so we might be a few weeks behind here, but really trying to have coaches understand ultimately they're the best advocate for their programs. They're the ones that are able to build relationships with the folks in their community, with their presidents, board of trustees, athletic department. I think sometimes people look to the USTA or the ITA and, hey, what are you guys doing? And it's like we don't have those relationships in those communities.
Right.
It's hard to come in and say, hey, this athletic director, this is how you should run your business, and this is where you should put, your resources. It's a very difficult conversation to have. We've had those conversations. They often don't go particularly well, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So just reminding coaches that, yeah, whatever additional steps you can take, it might be uncomfortable at first, but that's what I want to chat with you a little bit about is like, as we're facing these headwinds, what do you think are some of the non-negotiables that head coaches must be doing in order to protect their programs? Like, is it just like you said about the quote, and what are just some things if they're not doing as of today, they should start doing tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, I think that the two biggest things that I see that are easy steps are number one, engaging the alumni. Every team, I think, should have an alumni group chat on WhatsApp or whatever platform. And, the alumni who've gone through should be connected to the program. And I think that's tough for tennis because there's a lot of internationals and they leave and there's this massive separation. And so I think it's super easy to go back through the recent alum and reach out to them, put them in a group chat and just say, hey, invite the people that were, on the team when you arrived, and then have those people invite those, and easily you can, it builds itself. And there are people that care about the program and maybe just haven't been connected to it in 10, 15, 20 years sometimes. And so I think that's number one, is start to have that engagement from the alumni. And right away, people want to give and they care about their experience and they care about sustaining their program. So I think that's really easy. And then the other one that I think is a non-negotiable, I personally think that every college tennis team should be doing a 1 hour free community clinic every week. I don't see any reason with the desperation mode that we're in. We do so much for all these other elements. And then as far as raising community or growing the community, there's zero. And I think that tennis has a lot of unique advantages where in this really tough climate, we can just say, okay, 1 hour a week, everyone's going to come out. All of our athletes have taught tennis. Maybe not all. The vast majority have taught tennis. They've engaged with public. They're going to be teaching tennis largely in the summers or after college. Like that is a major avenue for a lot of tennis players. And so let's get people out here. All ages, all levels can be on a bank of 6 courts, and you can have easily 50 people playing some music, having some fun, and getting kids out there that have never played and really growing the sport. And it takes 1 hour from each athlete and 1 hour from the coaches. And it's a good time. And honestly, I think all of our athletes, especially the international ones, should be connecting to the community. I think it's a major value add for them. We've seen a lot of our guys create really big, strong relationships with people from the community through these, where they were, someone spent time over Thanksgiving with families. They're going to Bible studies with people from the community clinics and being hosted for dinners. And so it's really valuable for the athletes. And when you do it for free, it creates a new space for the people in the community that are like, wow, the tennis team is really trying to invest and give back. And I see some programs doing it, and they say, okay, donations accepted, and it's once every 2 months. And I think scrap all that and just say totally free. We just want people playing tennis. And
Yeah.
tennis is one of the biggest sports in the U.S. We have what is it, like 20 million people playing tennis. It's one of the top 5 sports in the U.S. And the U.S. Open is one of the biggest sporting events in the world and generates some of the most revenue in the world. Like, there is interest. It's just about how can we cultivate that in all of our towns and get people coming to matches and involved and build an atmosphere and an environment that becomes, exciting and electric, like the basketball games, like the football games. And then, I really don't see a reason why 10, 20 years from now, it couldn't be, college sports is just about football, basketball, and tennis. Those are they're just the big 3. It's like, why can't that be us? It is, we do it at some level, with the US Open, I think is a great example. I mean, it's the largest attended sporting event in the world on an annual basis, outside of the Tour de France. So it's like people are going, and the Tour de France is non-ticketed. You just come along the side. So there's interest there. And I think it's a great time for college tennis right now because no one's really pushed this avenue that much because we haven't needed to. But now it's like our backs are against the wall. We're down a set and a break. And if we don't start investing heavily in our community, then we have no right to be funded by a school that we don't add value to. So if everyone does that, I mean, there are 2,000 tennis teams in the US at all divisions of both genders. So if everyone can get a couple hundred more people playing, we've increased our numbers dramatically. And all of a sudden tennis is, one of the biggest sports in the country already. And now college tennis is popular. So, I think this is an awesome time for us and an awesome springboard for college tennis to become that if everyone buys in and is selfless and gives their time on the front end.
Yeah. Yeah, it's again really, really well said, Raleigh, and obviously USTA have their goal of getting 35 million players by 2035, and I think anything college tennis coaches can do to help them reach that goal, and the USTA is helping with grants, with community hub grants and
Yeah.
facility grants to help the coaches along their way. So let's help them reach that goal because at the end of the day, college tennis benefits from that. So, but Raleigh, if coaches, they're listening to this, they have some concerns like, oh, do they have the background or the experience or the education to be able to even run a big clinic like you did the PTM course? You've done a lot of other education. You're comfortable in those settings and navigating. Okay, the kids are here, the beginner adults are here, and you teach this. And but I guess, do you have any additional advice if there's experiences that coaches think they're lacking, or is it just, hey, just go do it, go learn on the job kind of thing? Just, how can they develop the skills, I guess, is the question I'm asking.
Yeah. No, I think the number one thing is the bar is not very high. If you can do a really poor job at running a free community clinic, and most people are going to be happy. If you just show up with balls and athletes that represent the university, I mean, you play some music, it's not difficult to make it somewhat enjoyable. Make sure you have enough rackets and balls, basically. But I think it's a valid question. I think the biggest thing is reaching out to other people that you trust. I mean, all of the stuff that I have is pretty much stolen or borrowed from other coaches, and on a regular basis, I'm reaching out, and I've been posting on utilizing social media to post questions and just literally post a question on my Instagram story, like who, this week I'm trying to do strength and conditioning, learn more about that. So I posted, who does the best strength and conditioning in the country, and people respond, oh, this team improves, and I just
Hmm.
reach out to those coaches. And one of the great things about tennis, again, it's so well positioned, is like it's a great community of coaches who all want to help. It's not this cutthroat, football where if you don't win every match, you're going to get fired right away. And it's a community that people want to help each other. And
Mm.
so I think capitalize on that. Reach out to the people in your conference, even in positions, and even people you don't know. I mean, we said there's 2,000 college tennis teams in the U.S. If this airs and I get 1,999 calls, I'm taking all of them and trying to help guide anyone. I'm sure there's a handful of coaches who don't need to ask me anything, but I think it's go in, do it, and if you're unsure, ask people in our community and our circles. I mean,
Hmm.
it's people are so willing to help, and it's such a healthy space, college tennis. So, and you build a connection. So I would say that's an easy one. Upper tiers, I think getting into the mentorships programs that the ITA is posting, Coach Up, things like that. I mean, there's resources if you're willing to invest more time. Obviously, that. But I think depends on how much you want to invest. You can just go
Yeah.
up and up and up. But the biggest resource is the coaches that are around, and most of them will answer a call and give you their feedback, and a lot of them even their secrets. I'll ask coaches like, "What's your biggest secret? Why are you successful?" And they're like, "Yeah, this is it." Or, okay, cool. I'm gonna try and replicate that, and maybe I beat you one day, and they would love that. They're pumped about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very true. That was my experience as a coach. It's been my experience at the ITA that we have very few folks when we ask for help, they're not willing to give it.
Yeah,
It happens once a year maybe,
yeah,
and usually the person has a pretty good excuse. So, yeah, Raleigh, it's brilliant. Really, lots of great advice. I appreciate you. Yeah, really. Your laser focus on this. Obviously, you have this experience of having to sit through that conversation from your administration, and I'd imagine that's going to sit with you for a very long time. But as obviously being instrumental in how you approach the job now on a daily basis, to experience that at such a young age as well. And so I guess our hope is that coaches listening to this don't have to go through that same conversation because they take the steps that you're now taking at Idaho. So well done.
yeah. And
Let's
if they can learn from me, from my terrible experience, like I'll say, if you're a coach listening to this right now, like this, it was by far the worst thing in my life. I'm probably going to get emotional here, but
Mhm.
it wrecked everything, for a long time. And, to go through that with the athletes and the situation it put them in and the shortage of spots already. And, it just like, I don't know. I don't know if coaches, I think maybe in some ways it's a blessing that it happened now, 5 years removed. The first 4 years were really tough, honestly. Um, but now I look back and I'm grateful because I have the fire underneath me to make sure it doesn't happen again, or to at
Mhm.
least do everything I can. So if you're a coach listening to this right now, like don't go through what I went through. Like I hope you feel the pain and suffering that it caused. And I'm sure other people who've had programs cut. Like put in the work now, put in the extra time, spend one less hour recruiting and one more hour engaging the community and grow our sport. And if everyone does it, then we don't have to deal with this anymore. And we can go from being, bottom of the ladder and fighting to stay afloat in college sports to, one of the top sports. So I hope people learn from the people who have gotten programs cut. And, I hope there aren't people listening that still think that they're exempt from it. Um, if you're low budget, then you're definitely in concern. But if you're high budget, you're even more funds, you know, left on the table if you do get cut. I don't think people are exempt. And I think that if people really understood that and what it's like to have that conversation, they
Mm.
would change how they are doing things on a daily and weekly basis. And I hope they get that before having to experience it themselves.
Yeah. No, it's very powerful, Raleigh. But let's jump into some rapid fire. So, favorite drill to do with your team?
Yeah. There's a game called Cow, or some people call it Mean Feed. Uh, Singles, but you got like three or four guys on a side. You play 1 point, losers off, and the loser's teammate feeds in wherever they want. They can hit a winner, and fast action, lots of movement, and the guys love it.
Okay. And what do you score it up to 11 or something?
No, so we play it. You've got to win 4 points in a row to get like a big point, a
Hmm.
set basically. And so one person has to beat all four of the other team's players, but the second, third, and fourth, they're receiving the feed. And then
Hmm.
you play to, three. And if you can get 3 points, that usually takes 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. Is there a book, podcast, professional development opportunity that had the greatest impact on your coaching career to date?
Yeah, I would say The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, the book,
Mm.
absolutely phenomenal. I would add in Mindset too by Carol Dweck. I think
Mhm.
both of those are must reads for all players and coaches.
Mm. Yeah, great suggestions. I know that Talent Code, there's like a miniature book that he put out as well. Do you
Yeah,
remember that?
the
You
little
remember that?
book, the little book of talent. It's like
Yeah.
365 tips, one per day. It's
Yeah.
just like a paragraph. Yeah,
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah,
great.
I remember relying on that when I was coaching.
Yeah.
Best advice you have ever received as it relates to college coaching?
Um, okay, this one's interesting, but I think it's really true. I use it on a regular basis. If you're unsure about an athlete, like a recruit, and you're trying to decide if could they be the right fit, maybe they're really good. Uh, if you decide to bring them onto your team, or if you decide not to give them a spot on your team and you were wrong, then they beat you once a year, maybe twice a year. But if you decide to give them a spot on your team and you're wrong, they beat you every day of the year.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think every coach can acknowledge that. Okay, best or you've shared a favorite quote. Do you have another favorite quote?
Yeah, I'll go. Um, there's so many. Um, Today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't.
Very good. Okay, and then is there? We're at this time of year, we're in the summer, we have student athletes who are just wrapping up their careers as players, but they're entering the coaching ranks now. Is there any advice you have for them as they get started in their college coaching career this fall?
Yeah, reach out to older coaches, make those connections, ask for advice. Um, Coaches love to help, and it'll be a network of people. You can reach out to me, Coach Raleigh, on Instagram, or I'm not going to say my phone number on here, but happy to always get calls from people joining the coaching ranks and invest in community. The whole thing is like that's going to save our sport or be the death of our sport. So not the death of our sport as a whole, but invest in community. Just get people out there. Let's grow the sport of tennis. Let's grow the sport of college tennis.
Okay. Well, Riley, I think we've found our next Greg Patton in the coaching ranks. So, yeah, really excited to follow your career going forward. But appreciate again just your time today, bringing coaches' attention to your story and kind of what you went through, and encouraging them not to face similar conversations that you had to deal with 5 years ago. So, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It would be an honor to be the next Greg Patton. Would be it's big shoes to fill, and thank you again for giving me platform to share my story and for considering me as a on the podcast. It's such an honor, and hopefully I get to do this for a lot longer.